يشرفني باسم الجمعية العامة أن أرحب بصاحب الفخامة إدغار تشاغوا لونغو رئيس جمهورية زامبيا في الأمم المتحدة، وأدعوه إلى إلقاء كلمته أمام الجمعية العامة، فليتفضل.
Your Excellency, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Governments, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to begin by thanking the Secretary General for convening this important session marking the 70th anniversary of the United Nations. Let me take this opportunity to congratulate His Excellency, Mr. Morgens Lichtoft, for assuming the presidency of the high-level segment of the session. Coming from the great country of Denmark, I'm confident that he will preside over the session with great success. I also wish to pay tribute to His Excellency, Mr. Sam Kutesa of the Republic of Uganda, for successfully presiding over the last General Assembly session. Your Excellencies, I wish to express my profound gratitude for the opportunity to deliver my inaugural address to the Assembly of World Leaders. As it will be recalled, my country was at crossroads following the demise of the 5th Republican President, His Excellency Mr. Michael Chilufya-Sata, on 28 October 2014. May his soul rest in peace. I was elected President of the Republic of Zambia. The subsequent election that took place on January 20, 2015, building on our impeccable record in the area of democracy and good governance, the election was characterized as transparent, peaceful, free and fair, reflecting our commitment to internationally accepted norms of peaceful changes of government and popular participation in the destiny of the country. I therefore wish to thank the people of Zambia for being true champions of democracy. As we meet today, I equally feel duty-bound to thank the international community for their unflinching solidarity during that very challenging time in the past year. This year is important for the United Nations General Assembly as we commemorate the organization's 70 years of existence. In our deliberations, therefore, it is imperative that we take stock of collective successes as well as challenges of the last 7 decades in order to improve the performance of this noble organization. I am optimistic that the 70th General Assembly session will set the tone for the future and meet the expectations of the international community as a whole. Zambia is proud to be part of the global endeavor to foster the mandate of the United Nations of promoting peace and security, respect for human rights, and advancing development for all. Zambia is, however, concerned that the gears to advance the 3 pillars of the United Nations Charter are moving at a very slow pace, a pace with the potential of negating the gains we have achieved so far. It is therefore important that we enhance our concerted efforts to address areas of concern in the area's Charter. Your Excellencies, we have just adopted the world's quintessential development blueprint of the 2030 Agenda, centered on humanity, environment, and peaceful societies. These core elements will guide its implementation and supported by the principle of leaving no one behind. I have been encouraged by the focus on development that has characterized the global discourse over the past years through the evolution of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The development lessons of the Millennium Development Agenda and the cumulative experience of the 70 years of the United Nations should serve as a springboard on which to spur our ambitions. Let us therefore ensure the successful implementation and attainment of the social development goals. I am confident that the invaluable lessons learned will set us on a trajectory that must invariably lead to a safer, inclusive, cleaner, and more prosperous world. Your Excellencies, in the last 70 years of the UN's existence, the inequality gap among and between nations continue to widen as poverty and youth unemployment threaten prospects for peace and security and development. My government looks forward to the versatile implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which fosters poverty eradication and creates employment opportunities for youth and women, especially in rural communities. In 70 years of the United Nations, the global community is today more united than ever before in its quest to push boundaries for peace and security. Yet, it is equally, if not more divided on who makes decisions on global peace and security. 70 years of the United Nations has seen more conflicts in Africa than any other continent. Yet, the same 70 years characterizes Africa's absolute exclusion from decision-making in the UN Security Council, where a significant part of the agenda concerns the African continent. In the 70 years of the United Nations' existence, Africa remains the only continent not represented in the Security Council. Goal number 10 of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development on reducing inequality among countries will not be achieved without eradicating the inequality among countries in the Security Council. The United Nations, therefore, must redouble its efforts at implementing Security Council reforms and ensure that Africa takes its rightful position among the community of nations and contributes equitably and effectively to global peace and security. For this reason, Zambia has continued and will continue to offer its resources for peacekeeping, including the deployment of a large contingent of troops in the Central African Republic area this year. Zambia comes with a long history of involvement in conflict prevention, peacekeeping, and peace building. As a landlocked country, gaining independence was incomplete as long as Zambia remained surrounded by nations still fighting liberation struggles. This gave impetus to our moral conviction to join in the liberation struggles in Africa, and since then, Zambia has continued to participate in peace-building initiatives and has supported peacekeeping efforts all around the world. We continue to share the global concerns at the unrelenting threats of terrorism, as it is mostly affecting the safety of non-combatants and civilian populations. Your Excellencies, I have been encouraged by the focus on development that has characterized the global discourse over the past year, notably through the discussions on the Sustainable Development Goals and 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Zambia has been a beneficiary of various initiatives aimed at facilitating the attainment of the Millennium Development Goals, which arose from the collective resolve of the generation of world leaders at the turn of the millennium. Indeed, most of our countries have continued to face serious challenges in the quest to foster development and improve the quality of life for our people. The challenges are numerous, including energy shortages and effects of climate change. The two are inextricably inseparable on the development agenda for countries like Zambia that rely heavily on hydropower generation. The changing rainfall pattern has adversely affected power generation capacities in most of our countries. This year, Zambia is expecting an unprecedented energy crisis that has already cost the nation dearly in terms of productivity, jobs, and revenue. Beyond the economic limitations, the social ramifications are equally devastating to the country, and it is therefore important that much effort is exerted on mitigation strategies to climate change. Furthermore, developing countries are still grasping or grappling with several challenges, such as poverty, high unemployment, particularly amongst the youth, skewed industrial development, low intra-regional trade, inadequate infrastructure, low productivity in agriculture and livestock, poor quality health services, and challenges of access to quality education. As we move forward, it is important for us to acknowledge that realities and imperatives of the world today and renew our common resolve to sustain the core principles of our organization as United Nations. We should redouble our efforts at harnessing our individual strength to collectively address the rather complex challenges that confront us in our increasingly globalized and interdependent world. Given the demographic nature of our communities, poverty remains a real concern, particularly in our rural areas. In Zambia, 70% of the people in rural areas depend on agriculture for their livelihood. And agriculture is one of my government's priority areas in the country's effort to diversify the economy away from mining. The government is therefore making interventions aimed at improving capacities and value addition for both the subsistence and commercial farmers. Our interventions, notably the Farmer Input Support Program, the Irrigation Development and Support Project, and other credit schemes need additional support in order to exploit the full potential of this giant industry. We also seek to strengthen partnerships to enable the improvement of services in such areas as provision of extension work services, improving access to market information, and the facilitation for physical transfer of produce to the markets. Key on Zambia's development agenda is industrialization. In this regard, my government has devised measures to encourage and support the development of appropriate industries, mainly in value addition, in order to spur structural economic transformation and increase private sector participation. The primary focus in this area has been on areas that have more backward and forward linkages to catapult the Zambian economy to higher levels of growth leverage on regional value chains, to expand trade, attract foreign direct investment, create employment, reduce poverty, promote sustainable development, and thereby empower our people. Your Excellencies, financing is one of the major challenges facing developing countries. We need external resources to bridge the gap required to finance development projects. It is in this light that the UN Conference on Financing for Development which was held in Addis Ababa in July this year to develop strategies for financing development is most welcome. The conference recommended several measures meant to bridge the financing gap, including the need for exploitation of new sources of finance and improving the tax administration systems, which would be supplemented by international support. We know that putting in place appropriate infrastructure is very important in our quest to expand intra-Africa trade and bolstering our productive capacities and enhancing Africa's competitiveness on the global market. In this regard, we must quickly identify sources to raise the $100 billion dollars Africa needs annually to finance its infrastructural development. It is equally important from the perspective of the landlocked developing countries, LDCs, to remain committed to the decisions of the Vienna Protocol, the Vienna Programme of Action of 2014. In keeping with this commitment, Zambia was privileged to host the meeting of the LDC countries in Livingstone in June this year, and from which an outcome document, the Call for Livingstone, was developed. I was honored to officiate at this conference and request that you may find time to look at the document. Your Excellencies, special attention should be paid to gender and women empowerment. The 2013 Global Review report indicates that 35% of women had been victims of gender-based violence. Indeed, Zambia acknowledges that this problem extends to most nations, including our own. To this end, we are already implementing important interventions to curb this scourge. Our approach to development will not be limited to economy, but continue focusing on all pillars of development. I am humbled that our traditional leaders, the UN system, and the civil society have seamlessly worked with government in fighting for gender equality for our women and girls. Your Excellencies, one of the most important programs which I have been engaged as a designated champion of the He for She campaign seeks to address issues of gender-based violence. The He for She project was initiated by UN Women in September last year to focus on addressing the incidences of gender-based violence. In a few days' time, my government will again be launching the USAID-supported Boys to Men project, targeting the 15 to 21-year-old age group and aimed at encouraging the development of a non-violent generation. In our determination to bridge the gap between the sexes, a vigorous campaign is underway to consolidate the educational foundation of the girl child by encouraging them to complete their education and to unlock their development potential rather than being forced into child, early, or forced marriage. Your Excellencies, the situation of the youth remains a daunting one. Unemployment is one of the major challenges facing our youth today. And to address this situation, my government recently launched the National Youth Policy, which lays the foundation for all interventions to support the development of a vibrant and productive generation. We are aiming at creating 500,000 jobs over the next 5 years, and this effort would dwell heavily on the facilitation of a private sector-led job market. We are also making efforts to address particular social disadvantages of the most marginalized members of our society, including the disabled. We want to ensure that they realize their potential and offer service to national development efforts as any other person. Your Excellencies, the challenges are many, but they are not insurmountable. The UN has been a key ally in addressing some of these problems. And indeed, the story of Zambia is to a large extent the story of the UN. I'm confident, Your Excellencies, that through our concerted and collective efforts, determination and hard work, coupled with able and visionary leadership, we shall indeed overcome. I look forward to working with you to ensure that our shared solutions are brought forward and implemented within the spirit of this organization. I thank you for your kind attention.
أود أن أشكر رئيس جمهورية زامبيا على الكلمة التي ألقاها للتو. هل أطلب إلى الممثلين أن يظلوا في مقاعدهم لحين تحية الرئيس؟